Okay. Good evening. Is not uploaded. Uploaded? No. Okay. So there are very few topics that are left. Okay. So one is the services. Let the document come. E-commerce and related areas, and then you have coal, energy related areas. Okay. So when it comes to e-commerce, what is inventory based model in e-commerce, and what is so in e-commerce, basically, we have two things. One is we have the inventory-based model, inventory, and another one is marketplace. Okay. Okay, so where FDI is allowed? Marketplace model. FDI is only allowed into marketplace model, but FDI is not permitted into inventory model. So inventory model is something like the producer, he himself is shelving his product in the marketplace. The producer, he himself, the producer. So suppose Amazon is basically part of the marketplace model. That means it is creating a marketplace for buyers and sellers to meet. But if Amazon itself is a producer and Amazon is pushing its products in the market, okay, so that with respect to such companies, FDI is not allowed. Okay, so why this is basically related to giving some chance or priority even to the smaller SMEs, the small and medium enterprises. They cannot compete. So in a marketplace model, probably they can also put their products there. Okay, so this is one important observation. FDI is not allowed into inventory model. FDI is only allowed into marketplace model. Okay, what happened? We'll take 1 minute. Let the documents come. What is the problem? They're not able to download or something? Achha. Okay, I'll take it. Page number 88. Wait. I know. Okay, so there is this scheme which I want you all to go back and read. This is also related to startups. This is a scheme. This is fund of funds for startups. Okay, so one is yesterday I was talking about Startup India program. Okay, so similarly you have fund of funds scheme. This is fund of funds for, this is primarily for startup. So this was established in 2016 with a corpus of 10,000 crore. Okay, so with contribution spread over 14th and 15th finance commission cycle. Okay, so they provide much needed boost to the Indian startup ecosystem and enable access to domestic capital. So the scheme does not directly invest in startups. Instead, it provides capital to SEBI registered alternate investment funds known as daughter funds, who in turn invest money in growing Indian startups through equity and equity linked instruments. So they are not going to directly invest money into Indian startups, but it provides capital to SEBI registered alternate investment funds, and that will invest into equity linked instruments. So SIDBI has been given the mandate of operating this fund through a selection of suitable daughter funds and overseeing. So one is the implementing agency, SIDBI, that you will remember. Okay, so it was established under the Act of Parliament. Okay, so this is about SIDBI. So later on, go back and read what is about SIDBI, Small Industries Development Bank of India, and what is this fund of funds scheme. So just for information, yesterday we've talked about this already. Just checking anything. So this is infrastructure we have discussed. So yesterday I was mentioning some committees also, if you remember, some committees related to railways, etc. Okay, so that I will show you separately anyhow. So this is about e-commerce. E-commerce market is expected to grow around 325 billion by 2030 as per Invest India. This is the news. Okay, so now what are the related entities which we can understand here? One is inventory-based model, marketplace model. FDI is only allowed into marketplace model. FDI is not allowed into inventory-based model. This is one important observation. And FDI into marketplace model is allowed 100% FDI under automatic route. So this is one more important observation. Now there's another important aspect that was in news. Of course, this was in the previous budget. So what you should be doing is tomorrow's budget, you will see what is the change that they have brought in with respect to this aspect called as equalization levy. Okay, so tomorrow's budget, you have to check this. This is very important. So one is, this is something like, what did they do in the previous budget? That is from August 2024. equalization levy of 2% was removed. Okay, so first of all, what is this equalization levy? What is the purpose of this tax called as equalization levy? So there are taxes like GAFA tax, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and in our budgets they have introduced taxes like equalization levy. It was introduced in two formats. One, first time when they introduced equalization levy, it was in 2016. It is a kind of a withholding tax. What is a withholding tax? Before you make the payment, at the source, you withhold certain portion, you deduct it, and you pay it to the government. This is what is withholding tax. It's a kind of a direct tax. So withholding tax, suppose 100 rupees has to be paid. Withholding tax is 10 rupees. What does that mean? At the source, 10 rupees would be deducted. 10% is, let's say, withholding tax. 10 rupees would be deducted, and the 10 rupees would be paid to the government. Okay. Now, what is the whole logic of bringing this tax? So one is equalization levy 1, the first part. It covered services, only services, and it is introduced via part of Finance Act and not by the amendment of Income Tax Act 1961. There was a previous question that was asked. So how was this introduced? It is not introduced as an extension to the Income Tax Act. Rather, it was introduced via part of the Finance Act in the budget. Okay, so now it charged an equalization levy at a rate of 6% of the amount of consideration for any specified service received or receivable by a resident from a person resident in India or a non-resident having a permanent establishment in India. So basically here there are two things. One is on advertisement related revenues, etc. There is equalization levy. Similarly, somebody who is a non-resident who is supplying some services, etc., who does not have a permanent settlement in India, and like let's say entities like Facebook, etc., and they are generating some revenue out of it, they have to pay this tax called as equalization levy. Are you able to get this? Okay. There is a definition for resident. Non-resident need not be a foreigner, but somebody who is not a resident of India. So here, a resident has some characteristics. If there is a permanent establishment, then that is different. So first of all, who is a resident? So in national income we discussed, who is a resident of India? It can be an institution or individual. There is a criteria. Okay, so generally 1 year in existence in India. Okay, so and their primary economic activity should be in India. So, but let's say there are some institutions which are set up outside India, but they are supplying services, rendering services in India. They are generating revenue there. But they are also made liable in terms of paying a tax. Okay, so this is what, so it is charged, it charged an equalization levy at a rate of 6% of the amount of consideration for any specified service received or receivable by a resident from a person resident in India or a non-resident having a permanent establishment in India. This was the initial one. Okay, so equalization levy 2 later on they have brought in. This is commonly known as Amazon tax. Okay, so this is basically directly levied on non-resident. Okay, so there are two. One is the equalization levy 1, second is equalization levy 2. So this is basically levied on non-resident. Now the question here is, what did they do recently? Okay, so last year after the budget they said that 2% equalization levy which was introduced, that is the second part. Okay, so this is basically we are talking about this part. From 2020 onwards, equalization levy of 2% of the amount consideration received or receivable by an e-commerce operator, non-resident from e-commerce services. Suppose we are there, we are residents, we have received some service from a non-resident, let's say some foreign company, okay, on which you are making some payments. Okay, on that basically, so there is a 2% equalization levy. Okay, so this is basically charged an equalization levy at a rate of 2% of the amount of consideration received or receivable by an e-commerce operator who is a non-resident from e-commerce services rendered to a person resident in India or a non-resident or a person who buys goods and services using internet protocol address located in India. So somebody, we are buying something online, okay, and generally if somebody who's a non-resident who's supplying services to us, okay, so and we are making some, he is generating some revenue out of it, Okay, so on that there was a levy that is levied, which is called as equalization levy, 2%. Okay, so this has been removed. This 2% has been removed in the previous budget. That is August, that this equalization levy. So what is the purpose? This is basically, why was it introduced as part of BEPS? BEPS is what? Base erosion and profit shifting. Okay, so base erosion and profit shifting. So here, two things which we will remember. Okay. India abolished 2% equalization levy affecting non-resident e-commerce companies. This is primarily affecting non-resident e-commerce companies. We have removed it. This was introduced in 2016. It was initially applied to online advertisements and related payments for utilizing digital ad space set at 6% rate for non-residents without a permanent establishment in India. Now this is not removed. This 6%, when you talk about the advertisement related aspect, this is not removed. What is removed? In 2020, its scope was extended to cover e-commerce supplies or services to Indian residents by non-resident e-commerce operators. So suppose there is a non-resident e-commerce operator who is supplying services to a resident. Okay, so this levy set at 2% is applicable on the non-resident e-commerce operator. So this is levied on the non-resident having a permanent establishment in India. Now this has been removed. This 2% has been removed, not this 6%. Okay, so this is now what they are going to do that we have to see in tomorrow's budget. Okay, so what are these taxes like equalization levy or GAFA is primarily because this is to prevent base erosion, profit shifting. Okay, so because of certain agreements, tax revenues, there are problems. One is the double taxation avoidance agreements, which we discussed. Okay, so, and second is these companies like Facebook, they have easy method of not showing profits in India. You can easily manage not to show profits in India. That is the reason they have brought in these taxes like equalization levy. Now, moving forward, open network for digital commerce. So first of all, ONDC we call it as, ONDC awarded Gold Award under application of emerging technologies for providing citizen-centric services in the national awards for e-governance by Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. First of all, what is this ONDC? It's a state-run e-commerce portal. Okay, so state-run e-commerce portal. So what is the function? Everybody can participate here. That is the most important aspect. So it's a non-profit organization under DPIIT. ONDC is a non-profit organization under DPIIT. So all the buyers and sellers can use this platform. Okay, so it is like the entities like Amazon, they can use it, but they were not showing any interest. So the sellers can also participate, the platform entities can participate in this, as well as the buyers can also participate. So what is the main reason? Why is it in news, first of all? Okay, so first of all, what is this open network digital commerce? So it is an open source network set up to enable buyers and sellers to transact with each other irrespective of the e-commerce platform on which either of them are registered. They may be registered in Amazon or Flipkart, etc. These entities can become part of this platform. That is what is the important aspect of this platform. It will enable local commerce across segments such as mobility, grocery, food orders, delivery, hotel booking, everything. It is an initiative of DPIIT. So which ministry? Ministry of Commerce. Okay. So to promote open network for all aspects of exchange of goods and services over digital or electronic networks. It seeks to democratize digital or electronic commerce, moving it from a platform-centric model to an open network. So what are the benefits? First of all, it offers small retailers an opportunity to provide their services and goods to buyers across the country through an e-commerce system. So you're engaging buyers and sellers on this government non-profit organization. Okay, so it is expected to digitalize the entire value chain, promote inclusion of suppliers, etc. This is what it is doing. It's a platform of the government, which is non-profit, and it will bring in both buyers and sellers together. Okay, so entities which are ready, which are registered on any other platform can also participate here. That is what is the understanding of this entity called as ONDC. Okay, so there is one word here, if you see, Sarathi app. Okay, so ONDC in collaboration with Bhashni have launched Sarathi reference app. So what is this Sarathi app? It assists businesses in creating buyer apps with multilingual support, like real-time translation, voice recognition, etc. So this is basically local languages, voice recognition, etc. All that is part of this app. It initially supports Hindi, English, Marathi, Bengali, etc. So this is basically, through this app, everything is available in the regional languages. That is what is possible when it comes to this platform. So that is what is ONDC. Then antitrust laws. What is this antitrust law? Anybody? Not read it? See, this is basically, heard of this institution called CCI, Competition Commission of India. Earlier it was MRTP, okay, Monopolies Restrictive Trade Practices. Okay, so recently, why was this in news? See here, the CCI found Amazon and Flipkart violating local antitrust laws by offering exclusive launches, favoring selective sellers and prioritizing certain listings. For example, earlier OnePlus mobile phones were exclusively sold on, let's say, Flipkart. Okay, so this is an aspect of exclusivity. Okay, so this should not be used. Okay, so there are certain antitrust guidelines which try to control, especially the bigger entities like Amazon, Flipkart. Okay, so because they are, now the problem is they can easily control the markets because of exclusivity. Okay, there are certain items which are exclusively sold. So here, first of all, this is the news actually. Zomato repeatedly agreed to exclusivity contracts with restaurant partners in exchange for lower commissions, which could limit competition. So this is what Zomato was doing. So basically, it was exclusivity contracts were signed with restaurant partners. Reason being lower commission. And basically, these entities will be only selling on Zomato. This is how you will erode the competition. This is the reason Zomato was in news. Swiggy allegedly promised certain restaurants rapid business growth if they listed exclusively on its platform. So this is what these entities were doing, whether it is Swiggy or Zomato. So this is an aspect of exclusivity. This should not be done. So CCI's investigation found that Swiggy, Zomato and their restaurant partners' exclusivity agreements prevented the market from becoming more competitive. So they're not going to sell it on any other platform. They are going to sell it on only these platforms, that is Swiggy or maybe Zomato. So this was in news. This is in violation of the Competition Act, may result in serious monetary penalties. So this is what is, so to handle such kind of things, there are certain laws in place which we call it as the antitrust laws. Is that clear? Okay, so what is antitrust? The main objective are to protect the consumer's interest by promoting fair competition and prohibiting anti-competitive market practices. If you know, CCI also has levied taxes or levied penalties against companies like Google. Okay, they were asked to pay fines on their global turnover last year. So that is the reason CCI related question also came up in mains. So earlier you had something else also, you had MRTP's 1969, which was regulating competition. But later on, you have Competition Commission of India, which is handling all this. So with respect to this, so here the CCI reported that Swiggy and Zomato violated antitrust and competition laws. So with respect to that aspect, you have this discussion here. So CCI found Amazon, Flipkart violating local antitrust, and even you find Swiggy, Zomato violating. So this is an aspect of exclusivity. Let's say there is some product which is a full demand, which is only sold on a specific platform, let's say Flipkart, etc. That is an aspect. So CCI, so antitrust framework concerning e-commerce in India, it aims at fostering competition, protecting anti-competitive practices. Okay, so restrictions on operation of e-commerce entities, restrictions on exclusive selling. No seller can sell its products exclusively on any market platform, and that all vendors on the e-commerce platform should be provided services in a fair and non-discriminatory manner. This is the news, and that is the reason it is. So here you will just go through CCI also once. Okay, so and antitrust laws. And ONDC, what is this entity? It is under which ministry? What is the purpose of ONDC? This is what is important for prelims in this context. Okay. Mining, energy and industry. Earlier there were some questions that were asked. I'll show you one question. Okay, we'll come to the question after some time. So first of all, coal sector in India. Okay, so this was one question. If you see, recently there has been a concern over short supply of a group of elements called rare earth metals, rare earth elements. Why? So this was asked. Okay, so, and of course, the answer was very clear in the question. Okay, so answer was very clear. So one is, I think today also in the newspaper there is a discussion about critical minerals. I think in Indian Express. Okay, so then what that means, you should read what is a critical mineral. Okay, so is it that all critical minerals are rare earth metals? No. Okay, so what is the difference between rare earth metals and critical minerals? This becomes important because I think tomorrow in the budget also there should be some discussion on critical minerals. Okay, so critical minerals becomes important, not for mains, I'm talking about prelims only. So of course this is basically China, which is the largest producer of these elements, has imposed some restrictions on their export. So this was there in news. Other than China, Australia, Canada and Chile, these elements are not found in any country. This is the wrong statement. Okay, so rare earth metals are essential for the manufacture of various kinds of electronic items, and there is a growing demand for these elements. Okay, so such kind of questions also keep coming. And there was also one question with respect to coal, which I will show you after some time, because the document based on that, I will not open the document still. Okay, so this is about coal sector. Union Ministry of Coal unveiled an initiative to revolutionize coal mining by engaging global mining developers come operators for major coal mine projects under Coal India. Earlier the question was, during Indira Gandhi madam, whether the coal related entities were nationalized. Okay, so it was nationalized by madam. Okay, then in the recent past, private allocation of coal blocks was also started. So this was also given. Okay, so this is how the question was framed. So here one important observation. One is coal and lignite contributes more than 50% of power generation in India. This is one important. And India is ranked second in coal imports worldwide. Okay, so, and one of the important challenges with respect to coal is high import dependence. India imports a lot of coal. Second is dominance of Coal India Limited. Quality is less and there is too much of dominance of Coal India Limited. Another important observation here, 100% FDI is allowed into coal mining under automatic route. 100% FDI allowed in coal mining under automatic route. So earlier there was a see here, this is basically when we talk about, there are two types of models that were there. So under the PPP approach where private entity, so when I talk about revenue sharing model, the private entity shares its revenue with the government. In contrast, production sharing contracts involve sharing profits. So earlier there was trouble with respect to KG D6 basin. Okay, so Krishna, Godavari, Dhirubai. So there was a problem with respect to contracts between government and Reliance. Okay, so that point of time, the problem was with respect to production sharing contracts. Production sharing contracts. So what was government doing? Government was giving all the concessions and subsidies so that the Reliance can pull out oil from KG-D6 basin. Okay, so what kind of benefits you will give? Imports and all, machinery or importing, the tariffs will be less. The duties levied would be limited. Okay, inputs and all, etc., taxes and all will be limited initially. So that Reliance will pull out oil easily and sell it in the market as per the contract number, as per the contract price with the government. But there were a lot of issues because one issue was Reliance was not adhering to the contract. So what was Reliance saying? There were a lot of technical glitches and therefore we are not able to pull out as much oil as we could. Okay, so an Indian government cannot go and see what are the technical glitches. Okay, so that means they were not operating on full capacity. So if I can pull out 100 liters, I'm only pulling out 50 liters. This is something called as not working on full capacity. It's a loss for the government. Okay, this is one. Second is inflation was high. This is what Reliance was saying. And our cost has increased, so we cannot adhere to the contract value. That is whatever price we are talking about, which we said that we promised that we will sell oil at this price. We can't adhere to this. So CAG came up with recommendations. Okay, so they said this pricing model is not okay. Better we will shift from production sharing contracts to revenue sharing model. Okay, so this is how in this area there is a shift from production sharing to revenue sharing. So this KG-D6 basin was a kind of a production sharing contract. Okay, so production sharing contract where everything is based on production, but the problem here is if you don't produce based on certain logics, the logic can be technical glitches or whatever it is, you're not able to produce as promised or as stated in the document, as stated in the contract. That is the problem, and that's the reason they had to shift from production sharing to revenue sharing. Okay, so this is now types of coal found in India: anthracite, bituminous, lignite, okay, and you have subbituminous, etc. So you know which one is of good quality. Okay, and what should be the calorific value? High or low? Okay. It is the highest grade of coal containing a high percentage of fixed carbon. It is hard, brittle, black and lustrous. This is the high quality one. And lignite is the lowest grade coal with least carbon content. Okay, so India's case, we import this high quality coal. Okay, so that is the reason we still depend on imports. Okay, this I have shown you yesterday, right? 8 core industries, etc. Actually, the document is missing. There was some confusion in uploading the document. Actually, I wanted the documents to be opened and kept. Okay, so anyhow, we'll see it later. Okay, so one is offshore minerals in India. So this is one more news here. So offshore mining, process of retrieving mineral deposits from deep sea bed at a depth of more than 200 meters. Okay, so here's why is it in news basically? Central government framed some offshore areas 2024 rules recently, and that is the reason this is in news. Okay, so first of all, what are offshore minerals? What is offshore mining? So offshore mining is a process of retrieving mineral deposits from deep sea bed. That is what is offshore mining. That is the first thing. Okay, so here India's offshore mineral reserves include gold, diamond, copper, nickel, etc. Okay, so then to all minerals except, see here, primarily the rules that have come up are applicable to all minerals except hydrocarbons and minerals specified in Part B of the first schedule of Mines and Mineral Development Act. So mineral oils, hydrocarbons, etc. are exempted. So here what is the main focus? Okay, so they have set some exploration standards for these minerals. Okay, exploration standards. So rigorous exploration standards for accurate assessment and sustainable development of offshore mineral resources. Okay, and then on completion of exploration operations, geological study reports shall be prepared, and the license to establish probable mineral reserve should be established. This is the guideline. So you will read this once it is approved. Right now, the only discussion, only thing which you will read would be what are offshore minerals. Okay, so what is the basic understanding of offshore minerals? So these are minerals. Offshore mining is a mechanism of pulling out mineral deposits from deep seabed at a depth of more than 200 meters. So India's exclusive economic zones of over 200 million square kilometers hold significant recoverable offshore mineral resources. That is the only thing which we'll remember. And one important observation is what are the offshore mineral reserves we pull out? That is gold, diamond, copper, etc. That is the only thing here. Once it is approved, the rules are approved, then we will remember that. Okay, so that is one area. So here one area which you have to read would be critical minerals. Okay, so that is one area which has to be read. So next is steel sector. So when it comes to steel, second largest steel producing country, India. So this is one data. Okay. Financial year 2024, India is a net steel importer. Okay, so 2024, India is a net steel importer. And steel contribution is approximately 2% of India's GDP. These are facts. So government has set a target of 500 million tons of steel production by 2034. And financial year 2024, India is a net steel importer. This is one data to be remembered. And contribution is approximately 2% to India's GDP. Okay. Major challenges for steel sector. Of course, this is not for prelims. This is only, later on you will read for mains. So one important observation here is decarbonizing the steel sector. So what is this decarbonizing the steel sector? If you see here, green steel is the manufacturing of steel without the use of fossil fuels. Okay. India's steel industry accounts for 12% of carbon dioxide emissions. Okay. So now the focus is decarbonizing the steel sector. Minister of Steel and Heavy Industries released a report greening the steel sector in India. So that is what is the focus right now. Is that okay? So this is one thing which you will underline and go through it once. Okay, so here one is, you have the 4th edition of Global Bio India 2024. Union Minister highlighted that next industrial revolution would be bioeconomy driven. Okay, so that is the word here. That is bioeconomy. What is this bioeconomy? So you are using biological resources, processes, knowledge-based production, so that you will be providing goods and services in a sustainable manner in all the economic sectors. So that is what is bioeconomy. So what is the significance? It reduces reliance on fossil fuels, decreases greenhouse gas emissions, etc. Okay, so that is the significance of bioeconomy. So bioeconomy status, if you see, grown from $10 billion in 2014 to over 130 billion in 2024. This is one data related to bioeconomy. So just to understand what it is, okay. Space sector, again a factual entity, but here what are the things which we will remember is, two important things which we will remember here. First of all, why is it in news? It is in news with respect to a venture capital fund of 1,000 crores. This is the previous budget. Now you will also look into what is the benefit of a venture capital fund in space sector, because building space, promoting space related startups and private companies, etc., funding is required. So space sector is capital intensive. So there is a support that is coming up for expansion of the space sector. With this logic, budget announced a venture capital fund of 1,000 crores to promote space economy. So that is the logic behind this aspect. Now, what is the main purpose? Promoting private participation in the space sector. Okay, so one agency which you will remember here is Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. Okay, so this is the autonomous agency under the Department of Space, responsible to promote, enable and authorize and supervise various space activities of non-government entities. So this is an agency which is handling, or it is acting like an entity which is responsible to promote, authorize and supervise space activities of non-government entities. This is all promoting privatization, promoting private participation with respect to space sector. Okay, so here two things which we will remember. What is the main purpose? Okay, so main purpose is to promote the private space and expanding the private space in the space sector. That is the first thing. And since it is capital intensive, money is required. Okay, so here need for setting up a venture capital fund, increasing India's share in the global commercial space economy to 10% by 2030. This is the target. So this is the target for which you require capital, and that too low cost capital, as space sector is a capital intensive domain. So that is the reason they have come up with that 1,000 crore venture capital fund. Okay, so what are the different entities or programs that they have launched earlier? One is you have the Indian Space Policy 2023, enables end-to-end participation of non-government entities in all domains of space activity. Okay, so now one important observation here, government has liberalized FDI norms to allow into space sector. 100% FDI is allowed into space activity. Okay, so this is something which you will remember. 100% foreign direct investment is allowed into space, but depending on the type here, for example, when I talk about launch vehicles, etc., up to 49% is automatic. Beyond 49%, it comes through government route or non-automatic route. Similarly, if you talk about manufacturing of components, etc., up to 100% FDI comes through automatic route. Okay, so this is a fact which you will remember. Satellite manufacturing and operation, 74% is automatic. Beyond 74, it is government route. Okay, so but ultimately, what is the observation here? 100% foreign direct investment is allowed into space program. Is that okay? So this is one important area. Okay, so see, all these are like, you can also read, and there's nothing like a concept involved here. But only thing is, you'll not miss out on few things. Okay, for example, coal sector. I was just searching for that question. That question was not visible, but there was a question on coal sector already. Okay, so steel, coal, energy related areas, there can be one or the other prelim question that can come up. So that is the reason we are looking into these aspects. Space is important. What is important? That organization which is Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in space. This is important. And also the FDI moving into the space sector. These are the two entities that are important for prelims. Voluntary Vehicle Modernization Program. Now, what is this? Union Minister of Road Transport and Highways launched the voluntary vehicle modernization. This is basically nothing but vehicle scrapping policy. Nothing but vehicle scrapping policy. So here, if you see commercial vehicles, registration of vehicle is linked to validity of fitness certificate. Okay, so commercial vehicles undergo fitness test every 2 years for the first 8 years and annually thereafter. Okay, so commercial vehicles fitness test every 2 years for the first 8 years and annually thereafter. Okay, so then private vehicles first registration is valid for 15 years. Valid fitness certificate is necessary for renewal of registration after 15 years. Renewal is valid for 5 years. Initially when you come in, it is 15 years. Afterwards, every 5-year renewal. Is that okay? Here, if you see, fitness would be mandated through automated testing stations for vehicles. So this is what, basically it's a vehicle scrap policy. Vehicles that fail the fitness test will be scrapped and owners will receive a certificate of deposit, which we call it as a scrappage certificate as proof, which can be used to avail of discounts on purchasing new vehicles. This is the whole objective. These are the only things there. There's nothing significant aspect there. Okay. Next comes the textile sector. When we talk about textiles here, one is textiles and apparel industry is second largest employer after agriculture. Okay, so textile plays an important role with respect to employment. Okay, so we export, US and European Union are major export destinations. Okay, so this is one important. Okay, so, and domestic apparel and textile industry contributes to 2.3% of country's GDP. This is difficult to remember, but one, employment, second largest employer after agriculture, then exports, US and European Union. So what becomes important here? Why is this we are discussing here? Because by 2030, the expectation is the textile sector is expected to grow to 350 billion. So what is important is this aspect called as technical textiles. Okay, so technical textiles. This is important. So here you have the grant for research and entrepreneurship across aspiring innovators in technical textiles initiative. This is called as the GREAT scheme. Okay, so this GREAT scheme is related to technical textiles. What are technical textiles? Very good. They are used more for their functionality rather than aesthetic purpose. That is what is a technical textile. For example, bulletproof jackets, okay, or firefighters. Okay, so these are called as technical textiles. Okay, so now when we talk about this GREAT scheme here, so obviously Ministry of Textiles is the nodal ministry. Okay, so, and up to rupees 50 lakhs for a period of 18 months is the aid that is given. Now, first of all, what is a technical textile? They are defined as textiles, materials and products used primarily for their technical performance and functional properties rather than their aesthetic or decorative characteristics. So there is this functionality for which they are used. For example, bulletproof jackets, fireproof jackets, etc. Okay, sportswear and space applications, etc. So this is what is a technical textile. I think it is clear. Okay, so and Indian technical textile market is already 5th largest market in the world. So this aspect of technical textile nowadays is growing, and there is a lot of discussion going on with respect to this technical textiles. Okay, so one is you have this National Technical Textile Mission already in place to promote technical textiles. Okay, so several central ministries and departments have been mandated to use technical textiles. Okay, so there is a mandate in terms of using technical textiles. Okay, so that is one important word there. Is that okay? Technical textiles is important. Then textiles industry, labor intensive, second largest, etc. Done. So yesterday we have discussed this, if you remember, index of 8 core industries. There are 2 indices. One is the index of industrial production, IIP, and index of 8 core industries. Previous UPSC question was, this is, if you remember, index of industrial production, IIP, is basically a volume index. Yesterday I've shown you this volume index, and it can be classified based on the usage, and it can be classified based on the sector. Okay, so that is how IIP. And if you look at this index of 8 core industries, first thing is what? Why is it in news? Because this index of 8 core industries has increased in this February around 6.7 compared to last Feb. So this is indicating that industry is okay. Then here, if you observe, they comprise 40% of the weight of items included in the IIP. This is one more important thing. So yesterday I've discussed this already. I mentioned this, that they constitute 40% of the weight of items included in IIP. Petroleum refinery products have the highest weight in this, followed by electricity. Previous question, if you remember, they did not give petroleum. Okay, so they have given other things, and you also have electricity. Okay, so this is released by Ministry of Commerce and Industry. I hope it is clear, right? So Navratna status in news because of these entities being awarded Navratna status. So one is this company called IRDA, Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency Limited, and we have Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited. Okay, so these two entities have been given Navratna status. With respect to that discussion, we have this Navratna status in news. Okay, so IRDA is under the administrative control of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. It was established as a non-banking financial institution in 1987. So what is the purpose? It gives loans basically. It's a non-banking financial institution which gives loans for what purpose? Generally for renewable energy purposes. So it's giving loans here. So it's under the administrative control of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. It was established as a non-banking financial institution in 1987. So primarily it gives loans, and that is the main important aspect there. Status of Navratna is granted based on various parameters. Okay, at the end we will see the questions. Those questions are missing. All the documents got clubbed. Okay, at the end we will see the questions separately. That is better. Okay. So, Expert Committee on Developing GIFT IFSC as Global Finance and Accounting Hub submits report to IFC Authority, etc. So, first of all, I think everybody knows International Financial Services Centers, which we call it as IFSC. So this IFSC, Gujarat International Financial Tech City, GIFT City IFSC, was established as a special economic zone in 2015 in Gujarat. Right? So here IFSC caters to whom? Customers outside the jurisdiction of domestic economy. They want to make investments, etc., into Indian markets. They can invest through this IFSC. Such centers deal with flows of finance, financial products and services across borders. Is that okay? Here IFSC Authority is a statutory body established under IFSC Act 2019. Okay, so sometimes these things will come up as a fact in the statement. So IFSC Authority is a statutory body established under IFSC Act 2019. GIFT City IFSC was established as a special economic zone in 2015 in Gujarat. Okay, so, and what is the main focus of IFSC? IFSC caters to customers outside the domestic economy. Such centers deal with flows of finance and financial products and services across borders. Okay, so that is the main objective. Okay, so this is later on you can just go through Navratna status and Mini Ratna and Maharatna status. So suppose if there is a question that is coming in. Okay, so the government categorizes public sector undertakings into 3 categories. 1 Maharatna, 2 Navratna and Mini Ratna. So government has introduced Navratna scheme in 1997. So now IRIDA has been given the status of Navratna. So that can come up as one statement probably, but another statement can be about what is this Navratna. Okay, so that is the reason you have to check what is. So PSUs that have a Mini Ratna 1 status and obtained an excellent or very good MOU rating in 3 out of the last 5 years. So in this MOU rating, 3 out of the last 5 years, they have got a good rating, then these companies are eligible for getting something called as Navratna status. First of all, Navratna status will be given to Mini Ratna 1. And 2, their performance is also pretty decent. So different indicators will be taken. Of course, these indicators they will not ask. So their score is good with respect to certain indicators for checking their performance, like net profit, manpower cost to the total cost of production, profit before depreciation, interest and tax. That means the profit is 1. Okay, manpower cost is 1. Net profit to net worth, earnings per share. Okay, so, or intersectoral performance. Okay, so these are certain factors. You need not remember these factors, but there is a requirement that these companies are doing well. And if you take the data of last few years, last 5 years, at least 3 years, their performance is good with respect to certain indicators like profit, earnings per share, etc. And they have to be Mini Ratna 1 first. Okay, so benefit of being Navratna, benefit is government will not interfere in the regular operations of the company. So they invest up to 1,000 crores without seeking approval from the central government. This is basically if you want to compete with bigger private companies, there should not be over interference of government. The private entities take decisions at a faster pace. So that is the reason certain quality companies should be given the opportunity to take decisions at a faster pace without bureaucratic control or without government's control. So this is one important aspect. Navratna companies are also allowed to invest up to 15% of their net worth on a single project or 30% of their net worth in a given year, subject to a cap of 1,000 crores. They can invest up to so much, up to 1,000 crores, to incur capital expenditure on purchase of new items or for replacement without any monetary ceiling. Otherwise, you have to, there will be 1, permissions from the government, and 2 is ceiling. Okay, so that means it gives financial independence, number 1. Okay, so because they can invest up to 1,000 crores without seeking approvals from the central government. Okay, so one is you will go through the conditions of Navratna and also briefly check the conditions of Mini Ratna, etc. I'll show you we'll see the documents after 5-10 minutes. Okay, there are some miscellaneous topics, small topics. Okay, so one is you find Nidhi companies there. Is FDI permitted into these companies? No. Okay. Is RBI approval required for setting up these companies? No. These can be questions. Okay, so can Nidhi companies lend money to outsiders? No. So these are the questions. Is Nidhi company same as chit funds? No. Are you able to get this? Nidhi companies are not same as chit funds. You heard of chits? Okay, so Nidhi companies are established as a company, but they will be, this lending activity will happen among the members only. They will not be lending to outsiders. These Nidhi companies can be set up as an NBFC, non-banking financial entity, but they will not be lending to outsiders. They will be lending to the members only. Okay, but if you know about NBFC will lend to outsiders as well, non-banking financial companies. NBFCs are regulated by RBI also. Some NBFCs are regulated by IRDA, SEBI, etc. Okay, so that is one important observation. Okay, so and Nidhi companies are different from chit funds. Chit funds are generally regulated by the respective state governments. So chit fund is basically a kind of a savings scheme. Group of people come, put their money, and then each time, okay, the least bidder would be given the money, and the remaining money would be shared among the other parties. Okay, so this chit fund is a kind of a savings scheme, and chit funds are regulated by respective state governments. Okay, so earlier there was a scam called Sharda scam in West Bengal. Okay, so the problem was SEBI wanted to interfere in this scam, stating that it is a collective investment scheme. See, collective investment scheme is regulated by SEBI. Chit funds are regulated by state government. NBFCs, most of the NBFCs are regulated by RBI, some are regulated by IRDA, some are regulated by SEBI. But most of the NBFCs are regulated by RBI. Can NBFCs lend money to outsiders? Yes. Nidhi companies do not lend money to outsiders. Lending happens among the members. There is no FDI that is permitted into these companies. That is the Nidhi companies. Are you able to get this? Okay, so here Ministry of Corporate Affairs cracks down on some Nidhi companies. So there were some problems in some companies, around 12 to 13 companies. Okay, so there were some sanctions levied by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So Nidhi company is declared by the central government under the Companies Act. Okay, so Companies Act. It complies with Nidhi rules made by the central government for regulation of such class of companies. The objective is to cultivate the habit of thrift and savings among its members. It receives deposits from and lends to its members only for their mutual benefit. This is the line. Okay, savings accumulated, lending happens only among the members. Okay, so net owned funds of 10 lakh rupees or more, not less than 200 members. Okay, so this is the basic criteria of Nidhi companies. So what you should read is difference between NBFC and banks. That is anyhow you have to read. Already questions have been asked. Okay, so I think I have discussed. If you put money in NBFC, do you have deposit insurance facility available? No deposit insurance facility available. Okay. Do NBFCs maintain CRR SLR? No. Okay, so can NBFCs issue check like the bank does? No, they can't issue checks on their own name. Okay, so can NBFCs accept demand deposits? No, they don't accept demand deposit. Deposit taking NBFCs also accept only term deposit. This is what. Okay, then, so that, see, they cannot participate in the LAF is different because there are some primary dealers who participate. Okay, so NBFCs, regular NBFCs don't participate in LAF. Okay, fine. So then another important thing which you will read, this chit fund is in news. That news is nothing. The news is like there were some 12 NBF chit funds were not okay. So therefore, Ministry of Corporate Affairs has taken some action. But what you will read is what is the basic difference between a chit fund and a non-banking financial company. Okay, so here if you see later on you can read it is not required to receive the license from RBI as these are registered with the Companies Act. So license from RBI is not required. Okay, so that is one important thing. It is recognized under the Section 406 of Companies Act and typically operates in the non-banking financing sector of India. Okay, so then it is formed to borrow and lend money to its members. It includes the habit of saving among its members and works on the principle of mutual benefit. It works on the principle of mutual benefit. Activities prohibited. It can't deal with chit funds, hire purchase finance, leasing finance, insurance or securities business. It can't do all this. It is strictly prohibited from accepting deposits from or lending funds to any other person except members. Okay, so that is important here. Nidhi companies should not issue preference shares, debentures or any other debt instruments in any manner, name or form. You can't issue bonds. Okay, you're not issue preferential shares. Preferential shares cannot be issued. Okay, and Nidhi company should not open current accounts with their members. Current accounts. Okay, you should not open current accounts with the members. So this is what is Nidhi company. But what you will dig deeper would be go back and also see what are chit funds. Who regulates chit funds? And also see what are collective investment schemes. Are collective investment schemes legal? They are legal and they are regulated by SEBI. Okay, so Ponzi schemes are illegal. Ponzi, P-O-N-Z-I, they are different. Collective investment schemes are different. Okay, so the problem with Sharda scam was SEBI was saying it's like a collective investment scheme. And they were saying it is chit fund. Okay, so and chit fund means states will regulate, SEBI, you stay away. So that is how, I think it is clear. Is that okay? So that is one important, I think in this book, in this bullets, this is miscellaneous bullets only. Anyhow, there will be few more months that will be added. That time we will discuss. This is the first part. No, so in the first part, these one or two topics are little boring. Boring means not boring, but factual. Yeah. So here, another thing here is Indian Standards Institution. Okay. So ISI basically. So ISI mark made mandatory for stainless steel, aluminum, kitchen utensils. So here I don't think, long back they asked, but here one thing is quality control order, through a quality control order. First of all, it is developed by whom? Bureau of Indian Standards, which is assuring product quality and safety. Okay, so, and it is mandatory for certain products under the scheme, like electrical appliances, etc. Okay, so it is mandatory, cement, automobile accessories, etc. Then ISI is compulsory. But now you are extending it to stainless steel, aluminum, etc., all that. So you have hallmark, ecomark, etc., all this. Is this clear? Okay, so there's another small word here, green shoots. Okay, so nothing great about it. FMCG green shoots means, what is this green shoot? Okay, so that is, it is doing well now. So FMCG is doing well means it's like economy is okay. Consumption, minimum FMCG should do well. So because you're not buying cars or something, you're buying something like toothpaste and other things. So here, these are signs that an economy or a sector is growing after an economic downturn. That is what you'll remember. That is what, this is the word called green shoot. Okay. Here, there is this last one, which is the other things I will show you the other documents. As far as our document is concerned, this is the last thing. Telecommunication Administration of Digital Bharat Nidhi Rules 2024. Okay, so what you have to read here, first of all, I'll read the news here. See, Telecommunication Rules 2024 have been notified by Department of Telecommunication in exercise of powers conferred by Telecommunication Act 2003 to operationalize the Digital Bharat Nidhi. So it is like you're creating some fund. Okay, so earlier there used to be a fund which is called as Universal Service Obligation Fund. Okay, so this Digital Bharat Nidhi is basically going to replace this Universal Service Obligation Fund. So DBN was established through Telecommunication Act for funding telecom schemes in the rural areas. So what is the purpose of that? The purpose is to fund telecom schemes in remote areas of the country to increase telecom penetration. That is the whole logic of this fund. Okay, so it replaced the USOF created under the erstwhile Indian Telegraph Act. So Universal Service Obligation Fund. USOF was a non-lapsable pool of funds generated by Universal Access Levy. Okay, so how are you collecting that fund? How is that fund replenished? This fund was replenished through charging on the adjusted gross revenue of the telecom companies. So there was a lot of discussion on this word called adjusted gross revenue. Okay, so see, this is a non-lapsable pool of funds generated by Universal Access Levy through the license fee charged on the licensee of the telecom entity at the rate of 5% of their adjustable gross revenue. That means basically you're charging, government is levying a charge, or government collects a license fee for spectrum, etc. This is basically on the adjusted gross revenue. So what is this adjusted gross revenue was in news for almost many years with respect to telecom companies. So this concept you should know a little. That is, what is this adjusted gross revenue? Any of that fund is clear. It has replaced the USOF fund. What is the purpose? Purpose is very clear. That fund you will use for telecom penetration, especially in unserved and rural population. That is the reason it is in news. How is the fund replenished? The fund is replenished by levying some tax or charge on the adjusted gross revenue of the telecom companies. I hope it is clear. Okay, so when we talk about this adjusted gross revenue, it is the usage and license fee that telecom operators are charged. Companies like Airtel, Vodafone, they are charged. Government charges them, are charged by the Department of Telecommunication. But the whole problem we will see, so the way it is calculated is the problem. The way it is calculated. So one is on the revenues you earn. So first thing is, first I will read, then I will explain. Here, it forms the basis for calculating telecom companies' dues to the government. So this adjusted gross revenue will form the basis for calculating the dues which these telecom companies pay to the government. Okay. So there are two things here. One is the spectrum usage charges. So spectrum usage charges, these are pegged at 3 to 5% of AGR, adjusted gross. Spectrum usage, government comes up with allotting 2G licenses, 3G. Okay, so spectrum usage charges is one. Second is license fees. Okay, so telecom operators are required to pay 8% of their AGR as a license fee to the government. So out of this, your AGR, if you adjusted out of your total adjusted gross revenue, you are asked to pay 8% of it as the license fee to the government. This is one. And then you also have to pay for spectrum usage charges. One is the license fee, second is the spectrum usage charges. Both of them you have to pay on what? Adjusted gross revenue. But the way adjusted gross revenue is calculated, that was the problem. So if the company is earning revenues, companies can earn revenues from its core operations, and companies can also earn revenue from other non-core operations. Non-core operations can be maybe some rents it is earning, some building sale it has done, and other things. Some asset sale, okay, deposit interest, dividends, etc. It is earning money through other things other than the core operations. So what government says is this adjusted gross revenue should include both operational aspects also, as well as your earnings from other sources also. So this is something which was not liked by the telecom companies. Are you able to get this? Okay, so this was in conflict and this was in dispute from the beginning. Okay, so for example, beginning of the dispute was in 2005, when the Cellular Operators Association of India challenged the government's definition of adjusted gross revenue. So what they did, it is basically the dispute centered on whether non-telecom revenue should be included in the AGR calculation. Non-telecom revenue, whether it should be included or not, is the dispute. Is that okay? Then later in 2015, what happened? The Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal ruled in favor of telecom companies. So that means in 2015, this entity has come up with judgment saying that you will only take operational revenue for calculating the AGR. Is that okay? So, but what happened in 2019 is Supreme Court has set aside the judgment and it said the definition of AGR has been changed. It should include all the revenue sources, including non-telecom activities like interest and capital gains. And companies like Vodafone, finished. You have to pay a lot of money and other things. This was creating the trouble. Is that okay? So this is the concept, but our current affairs is very simple. This is something like when we talk about Digital Bharat Nidhi, you are coming up with some fund And earlier it was USOF, Universal Service Obligation Fund. And that fund was replenished from these revenues which were coming from the telecom companies, which was charged by the government on their adjusted gross revenue. Is that clear? Understood, no? Okay, so that is, so you'll only read what is AGR. I'll take another 15-20 minutes. This is over. Okay, so a few things which you will focus, I will just mention them. So this document will be uploaded. This is about the external sector. Okay. So in the external sector, where can the questions come? Tomorrow you will observe what are the debt targets of the government. Debt target means debt to GDP target, along with FDs and all. In your FD, you know, fiscal deficit target, what madam is saying, etc. In the tomorrow's budget, you check for the next year, what is the FD target. Okay. Then along with that, you will also check the debt to GDP ratio targets. Debt to GDP, because debt to GDP was in news, almost like 82-83% we were touching. So therefore that became a problem. Another thing which you will also check would be external debt. Okay, and this external debt, so there is this external debt service ratio. Every time in the budget and survey they talk about this. So that is external, this is external current receipts. That is money that is moving into government's pocket. And debt service is principal plus interest which India has to pay. Okay, so whether this is increasing, this is called as debt servicing. So debt is not free, no? You have to service the debt. Okay, how do you service the debt? You have to pay the interest, you have to pay the principal, etc. But if you have a lot of money coming in the form of current receipts, then there is no trouble. But the problem is if the denominator is not there, not coming in, but if you see that this is increasing, then there is a trouble. I hope it is clear. Okay, so then this I've mentioned it. Okay, so this is about, and you'll also see trade deficit targets of the government, because last few months trade deficit was in problem because of gold imports. Okay, so that is one more thing which you will remember. This is only about the external debt. This is external debt. So this is the external debt component. Earlier, previous UPSC question was also there on this. So US denominated, that is dollar denominated maximum, and followed by rupee, then SDR, then yen, then euro. Is that okay? So that is one. Okay, so then look for the export destinations, top export destinations of India, then top import destinations of India. This is one. Is that okay? So IMF has come up with new classification of our BOP. So this new classification, you know how is BOP given? How BOP has a current account and a capital account. And current account has, you have, what are the things which are part of the current account? Services, remittances or transfers, trade, okay, and income. And in the capital account, you have investments and borrowings, right? This is the basic classification. Now this is called as BPM 6. Okay, so BOP and International Investment Position Manual given by IMF. So IMF's new manual talks about the classification of BOP in a little different format, where don't get confused. So you will tomorrow, if it is coming in the exam, then this is how IMF wants the classification to be. So this is basically, one is the current account, then you have the capital, and separately they are showing financial account. So earlier it is basically you have current and capital. So here the classification is current. So in the current there is goods and services, primary income, secondary income that is coming in. That is current. Income anyhow is part of the current, you know this. Okay, in the capital, they are only showing acquisitions, assets basically. Capital transfers, government and private capital transfers. Separately, they are come up with a financial account where they are showing for investments like FDI, portfolio investments, loans, reserve assets, etc. These are separately shown in the financial account. Earlier in the capital account itself, you were seeing all this. Okay, so now there is a separate classification which they have come up with. Okay, so that is capital. See, capital account comprises capital transactions in the non-financial and non-produced assets. Okay, so that is what is capital account. So non-financial and non-produced assets. But when I look at capital transfers here, capital transfers, acquisition and disposal of fixed assets and debt. Okay, so this is non-produced assets. Non-produced assets means what? Non-produced assets are like patents, copyrights, and franchisees. Okay, so non-produced assets. Non-produced assets. So this is something like a new classification which I have come up with. So you'll just go through what is the new classification, if at all they are asking. Otherwise, if they ask the similar thing, there is no trouble. So non-produced assets are patents, copyrights, and franchises. Okay, so these were some questions in here. You can look into it later. Okay, so this is something like what is the basic difference? Okay, so IMF introduced the new accounting standards in the 6th edition of BOP and International Investment Position Manual, BPM 6. Okay, so that is the BPM 6, and this is how the classification, you at least remember 3 classification: financial, current, and capital. That should be okay. Okay, so this is, of course, this is a CDS question 2024. This is a little different, you can observe here. There is no cost of holding foreign currency as reserve by a nation. Most of the Indian reserves is held in the form of foreign currency. So any of you know this. One is, first statement is clear. Everybody should be knowing the first statement. The first statement is, when I look at forex components, one is the foreign currency asset, followed by gold, followed by SDR. Got the point, right? So that is the thing. But the major component would be foreign currency assets, no? Dollar, euro, pound, yen, these are the things. Okay, so, but there is no cost of holding foreign currency as a reserve. Is there a cost? No cost. There is a cost. There is a cost involved. That is the reason internationalization of rupee will help us to reduce costs tomorrow in terms of holding currencies, etc. So this is just to tell you, like, if you look into the question papers, then you will get some idea. I hope till there is no confusion. Okay, so these things, there's nothing like important current here. This was a previous question. Okay, so which of the following would include FDI? Okay, so this is subsidiaries of companies in India, majority foreign equity holding in Indian companies, companies exclusively financed by foreign companies, and portfolio investment. Okay, so what should be the answer? So obviously 4 has to be removed because portfolio investment, see, FDI is different, portfolio is different. Okay, in the portfolio investment, you have FIs, you have QFIs, and you have sub-account holders. There are 3 classifications in portfolio, but FDI is different. And the new definition of FCI, this is basically subsidiaries, majority foreign equity, and companies exclusively financed by foreign companies. This is basically control over the asset. FDI can be defined based on control over the asset. More control you are having, it is FDI. Less control you are having, it is portfolio. That control now is 10%. That is asked later again. So now the questioning pattern before last year was something like, see this FI with certain condition. So FI with certain condition is not a portfolio investment, but you are treating it as FDI. So that is that condition there is that 10%. Got the point right? Is that okay? Understood? Okay. Now what is the basic criteria? Tomorrow check if there is government is discussing anything with respect to lifting the upper limits on ECB. See, our capital account is not fully convertible. Okay, so it is only partially convertible. You know this, right? But if you see FDI in space, we have discussed. That means even in the space sector, you're talking about 100% FDI. So that means over a period, government wants to go ahead with complete convertibility. Over a period. So over a period, you want to go ahead with complete convertibility means you have to remove the upper limits and regulations and restrictions on those things that are part of my capital account. Okay, so for example, including NRI deposits. So NRI deposits are also part of my capital account, right? NRI deposits are also part of the capital account. Okay, so will you take NRI deposits as investments? Suppose this is the question. Is 4 there in the answer? No. Okay, so 4 is not there in the answer, right? So answer is 1, 2, and 3. It's a previous UPSC question only. Okay, so 4 is not there. So here, what is this? Non-resident external. 3 deposits are there, no? NRI deposits. NRIs should not hold our accounts. It is not, according to law also, according to the rules, they should not be holding what accounts we are holding. First thing. They can hold FCNR or NRO or NRE. NRE, non-resident external. Are you able to get this? Non-resident external, non-resident ordinary. Okay, so one problem with non-resident ordinary is repatriation is a challenge. Repatriation, taking back the money. There are regulations. Okay, so that is one issue. Fine. So now here, so ECB, one important aspect in ECB is trade credit is also there in ECB. Trade credit is part of ECB, number one. Number two, ECB is generally long term and it is a commercial loan. Okay, so ECB can be accessed under 2 routes, automatic route and approval route. Okay, and masala bonds are a kind of ECB where the bonds are issued outside India but denominated in Indian rupees. Okay, so that means ECBs can involve masala bonds as well. So it refers to commercial loans availed from non-resident lenders with minimum average maturity of 3 years. Okay, but it is not compulsory. This 3 year is not compulsory. Okay, so that is. And one more thing which you should be checking in the current affairs would be the currency swap agreements. And what is the purpose of currency swap agreement? Because that is also in news. So one is earlier India-Japan currency swap agreements. Okay, and interest-related currency swap agreements are also there. So these things you will check. Okay, interest swaps. Okay. Last year the question was only like whether swap is something like a financial instrument or not. That was only the thing that they have asked. They have not asked something like what is the purpose of swap. These things were not asked. Is that okay till there? Okay, so that is what else you can look into. So in infrastructure, of course, there are some words like social infrastructure, economic infrastructure, etc. Okay, so what is economic infrastructure? What is social infrastructure? So these are some words. Then yesterday, I think I've shown you this document once. I've shown you this document yesterday, right? No? Okay, so this is the coal sector question. So sectors are also important. It's not that you will leave and just blindly go. For example, if you see, till recently India imported coal to meet the shortages of domestic supply, but now India is self-sufficient in coal production. This is what we have read in the magazine, that India is still importing a lot of coal because we don't have quality coal. Got the point? So this is how that should help you to mark the answer. Okay, so coal sector was nationalized by government under Indira Gandhi. True. Okay, and then now coal blocks are allocated on lottery basis. It is not lottery basis, it is basically bidding, auction. Okay, so that is how sectors can also be asked. This is just for information. Okay, is that clear? Okay, so coal sector, this is a very boring topic, so we feel like, oh, what is there? It's not required, but not like that. So you have to check. For example, tomorrow question on steel is coming. Okay, so some basic understanding of steel sector should be there. That is what is the intention. Yesterday I've showed you this already. I said this is about the skewed transportation model, etc. in infrastructure. And I said you'll read different types of public-private partnerships, PPP. Okay, so then budget allotments, etc. tomorrow you will check. So tomorrow you have to check with respect to National Highway Authority of India, what are the key changes with respect to budget allocations of the government with respect to rail, road, etc., port, etc. So that you will be checking tomorrow. Okay, and you will also read about DFC. DFC is what? Dedicated Freight Corridors. Is that okay? So that is one. So with respect to agriculture, yesterday we have discussed, I said one most important thing would be schemes. I think schemes are uploaded. Okay, but not all the schemes are there, but few schemes, important schemes are covered in that document, like Fasal Bima Yojana, okay, and most of the important schemes. So then with agriculture, with respect to agriculture, you'll also check trend-based questions. Trend-based questions means last 5 years, what has happened to rice production, wheat, pulses, etc. Similarly, growth rates of agriculture, growth rate of agriculture. Okay, so in the last few years, you'll check 5 years. 5 years, was it increasing consistently, decreasing, what is the situation? Okay, so what is the situation during COVID, what is the situation, etc. Okay. And then employment patterns, etc. And then there's a topic called cropping pattern. Okay, so if you know, this was a question earlier. Got the point? Okay, so if you go back and check the previous questions, you will find mixed farming. What is mixed farming, they have asked. This is from NCERT only. NCERT is very important. Okay, and this is from NCERT, they have asked. Okay, then these are the revolutions which I have shown you yesterday. All the revolutions should be learnt. In our current affairs magazine, we are talking about white revolution. Okay, so now see this question on rice. If you see, among the following, which one is the largest exporter of rice in the world in the last 5 years? Okay, so this was asked in 2019. Are you able to get this? That means it's a factual, purely factual question. That means you have to check rice exports, rice production, etc. Okay. Then any new things where, for example, one is golden rice in news. Yesterday we mentioned this. Okay. And then anything where you have something like GI tag being given already. Okay. So I think yesterday I've shown this. Okay. So so it has been awarded under the One District, One Product scheme. Heard of this scheme? Okay, so this is something which... So gross area under major crops. Of course, this data again you will be seeing in the economic survey. Okay, so rice, pulses, wheat. This is the order. Okay, so this is again factual. Okay, so recent trends in agriculture, we see dominance of cereals among food crops, decline in core cereals, dominance of food crops over non-food crops. So if there are statements in the exam, okay, so you have to observe these kind of statements. Declining share of agriculture in India's GDP. So 50% in 1950s almost came down to 48, 20% in the current. Now it is 48, 40s, later on, and then 20%. And then increasing trend in horticulture and floricultural output. This is one. If you take 10 years data, allied services are contributing more to GDP than crops. So this is again all our data. Okay, so a growing volume of subsidies in respect of fertilizer, irrigation, and electricity, etc. Then what is natural farming? How is it different from organic farming, etc.? Then there are these terms which are there, hydroponics, heard of them? Okay, so just for information, aeroponics, etc. These are few things which are recently in news. Okay, I showed you this question yesterday. This is again which will pick up from the budget and economic survey, these type of questions. For example, oil, maximum imports, which oil, palm oil, etc. Okay, so this is the question. So the quantity of imported edible oils is more than the domestic production of edible oils in the last 5 years. Okay, so that is, and then the government does not impose any customs duty, etc. This is anyhow known. So what do we have to do? Go back, see edible oil production and the ranks with respect to edible oil production. Okay, and India's edible oil imports. Okay, and edible oil, there are problems, especially there are certain schemes also with respect to promotion of oil seeds, etc. Okay, so this is one of the scheme there. Okay, so this is some data. Okay, so any of this you can read, document is uploaded. That is one. And the last document, last 2 minutes. So this is related to industry. So this is also neglected area. Last thing you will do is you'll read this. So one is you'll talk the classification of MSME and any specific programs in the budget with respect to MSME. Any specific programs. Okay, so credit guarantee trust, yesterday we have talked about. Any changes with respect to that credit guarantee scheme for MSME. Credit guarantee scheme for micro, small and medium enterprises. Okay, so then you have Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. Heard of it? Okay, so that is also, and there you have Sishu, Kishore, Tarun. Recently there was an increase. Which one? Tarun. So that means it is in news, and therefore Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana is important. So we'll go back and read Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. Because it is already there, so go back and read this. Okay, so then there are other schemes also. For example, for handling something like one district, one product program is there. And then you also have something like formalization of micro and small and medium enterprises, etc. This is another scheme, etc., which you'll go back and read. So this we have talked about this earlier, different types of PPPs, etc., Vijay Kelkar Committee, EPC, Swiss Challenge, etc., hybrid annuity model, etc. This was a question that they've asked earlier. This is with respect to our growth and development. Okay, so we have read GFCF, if you remember. GFCF is what? Gross fixed capital formation. So we have seen some trends in GFCF. Okay, so that was the discussion we had. Okay, so now the question is, one-time investment made, big investments made for maintenance of assets. So these things are also part of GFCF. Remember, this is what we have discussed. Okay, and what about the answer for this question? See? Which one is removed? Is change in inventory part of investments? Is change in inventory part of investment? Yes. But it is not part of GFCF. But change in inventory is part of my gross capital formation. That is investment. Okay, so that is something which you already know. Okay, so here, labor laws, any changes with respect to the labor laws, etc. We have talked about, one is minimum wage and living wage. Yesterday, I think that has come up. Okay, so just go back and see what is this minimum wage, what is living wage, etc. Okay, and Code on Social Security 2020. There was a question on this, prelims question 2 years back. Go back and see this. So when you see solve that question, you'll understand. Code on Social Security 2020, there was a question. Okay, so you can also read about Companies Act 2013 and what are the things that are there as part of the Companies Act. So one is you have this corporate social responsibility. Heard of this, no? So how much amount as part of the CSR facility, etc. So these things have to be checked so that if there is a question on corporate social responsibility, etc., then that can also be handled. Okay, so this is about the CSR. Then you'll also check the basic difference between LLP. What is LLP? Limited Liability Partnership, and Companies Act and Partnership Firm. Basic, not the technicalities. What is the basic difference between Limited Liability Partnership, Companies Act, Partnership Firms, etc. Okay, now the norm is like you have one-man companies also. Okay, so one-man companies. I'm not talking about proprietorship. We are talking about companies, which is one-man companies in discussion. So what is this one-man company? Liability lies on whom, etc. These are the things. That's all. Okay, so that's all for today then. Thank you.